Hello, environmental science class. This is Unit 3, Section 4. It is the last section in this unit. So we're going to talk about how scientists describe and organize the living things inside these ecosystems and biomes. And this is something that you should have learned last year in biology. We're just hitting it one more time. I'm also going to supplement this content video with a video provided from Mrs. Tompkins. It's going to go over a couple of things as well. So let's dive in. So the big overarching concept here is taxonomies and cladograms. All right. So taxonomy is a hierarchical organization structure, moving from the most broad to the most specific. Right. And we are going to be going in the reverse order that this diagram actually uses. This is just a nice way to look at it from being specific to generic, right? So usually we're going to start with domain, which is over this way on yours, and move towards species, which is that way. So domain is the largest possible grouping of living things. So in this case of the American black bear, we are using the eukarya domain. That's a eukaryote. The kingdom comes next. That's Animalia, so animals. Phylum is Chordata. Chordates have backbones. They have spines. Mammalia are mammals, so they give birth to live young and have fur or hair and will nurse their young with mammary glands that produce milk. Carnivora are especially suited for eating meat. They don't always just eat meat, but they have especially facial features and teeth that will let them do so. Ursidae are what you and I would start to consider bears, all right? And then Ursus and Ursus americanus are the family, genus, and species. You should remember as well that we use the genus and species to talk about the actual scientific name for a specific type of animal. So here to the far left, it says Ursus americanus in italics, and the U in Ursus is capitalized. So the name of the genus is always capitalized, followed by the species name. Right? And there's going to be a video from Mrs. Tompkins that she has that I could use most graciously, at explaining how to do a cladogram. That's the branching tree looking thing. You'll see it, I promise. All right, so we're just going to quickly go over some domains and kingdoms that I want you to be aware of, and I want you to be able to talk about just a little. We're also going to have a couple activities, if you're part of my class, that go over these more in depth. So the domains come first. Those are the biggest possible groupings. We have archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. So archaea are prokaryotes that are not bacteria. I know that's kind of a cop-out on how to describe them, but that's the easiest, and we don't need to worry about them too much. They used to be called archaeobacteria. That's an old term. Bacteria are single-celled prokaryotes that are not archaea. Again, I know that's kind of a cop-out. We're looking at very broad terms, all right? Eukarya are eukaryotes, like you and I. We have nuclei in our cells. So stepping down from the domain to kingdoms, we have 5 basic kingdoms of the eukarya domain, and those are the ones that we are going to care about because the other ones get super complicated super fast. So Monera are true bacteria and cyanobacteria that are eukaryotic. So they have nuclei. Protista consist of protozoans and algae, like blue-green algae, which has cyanobacteria in it sometimes. Fungi, or fungal, or fungus. These are multicellular heterotrophs. Remember, heterotrophs eat other things or consume other things, and they don't have cilia or flagella. If they do have cilia or flagella, they may get thrown into another kingdom. So plantae are multicellular autotrophs. Remember, autotrophs make their own food, right? It's really chemicals like glucose and fructose. And they have a female sex organ on the plant itself. And then Animalia are multicellular heterotrophs without cell walls or photosynthetic pigments. Remember, photosynthetic pigments is just talking about things like chlorophyll. They are a type of pigment that absorbs light to make something else. Right, so plantae, these are plants, right? We've got two basic types of plants I want you to know about, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Gymnosperms are generally going to be trees. They are woody plants, so they have a stalk that you would call a trunk instead, and they don't produce seeds in a fruit. So think pine cones, right? There's no fruit there. It's just a cone. This would be considered a coniferous gymnosperm. You could also think of an oak or a maple that make acorns or those little helicopter things that fly down. Angiosperms, however, are flowering plants that produce seeds in a fruit. So if you would consider it a fruit or a vegetable and you eat it, it's probably an angiosperm. All right. So if it makes a flower, it's an angiosperm. And if it creates a seed in a fruit like an apple or a tomato or a watermelon or a zucchini, it doesn't matter. Any of those would work. It's an angiosperm. All right. The fruit acts as nutrients for the seed when it gets planted. All right. Animalia, like you and I, are grouped into two different types, invertebrates and vertebrates. We are vertebrates. We have backbones. Fish, reptiles, amphibians, birds all have backbones too, even though they're very different from mammals like you and I. Animals without backbones would be called invertebrates. So the in part of this word means not or no. So you could read this as no vertebrae. Okay, so I know that I know that this picture has protozoa in it, and we said protozoans aren't animalia. I'm stealing pictures off the internet. What are you going to do? All right, so we've got mollusks, spiders, crustaceans, insects, arachnids, all those type of things that you would think of as not vertebrates. They fall into invertebrates. All right, so there are a lot more in-depth ways to look at organizing and describing the living things that are inside an ecosystem. This is kind of a broad overview. For my class, this generally falls around Thanksgiving, so we're going to take it a little light. No promises, though, if you're watching this next year or the year after, or if your teacher isn't me. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out, contact me. You guys know how to do that if you're part of my class. Otherwise, have a good one.